As Bernard Malakiam, the undersheriff of Santa Barbara County at the time of the Isla Vista mass shooting, said, "How and when should government intervene in the lives of the strange? There has to be a line between arresting people and doing nothing." Perhaps our next guest has the answer. Sofia Collin builds community through her peace-building project, which supports Unbounded Law, law as an instrument of peace, not retribution. Hello, Sofia.
Hi, Teri.
Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm honored to be in the same evening's discussion with Doss and Christina. So I'm very honored and pleased to be here.
So why don't you tell us what is Unbounded Law and how did you get there?
Of course. Before I think I would discuss the definition of unbounded law, I think it makes sense to discuss bounded law. And bounded law is the law that we normally encounter, which is if you jaywalk, there will be a fine or a consequence. If you are to trespass into someone else's property, there also will be such a consequence. And so bounded law holds a line, and if you transgress or if you go over that line, there is a punishment. And bounded law is situated in such a way as to enforce by either punishment or fear of punishment, and is reactionary as it essentially acknowledges people after they've already done something wrong. It's both physically restrictive, as it tells you what you actually cannot do, and it's intellectually and emotionally restrictive, as it points to society's failings, both the individual's failings and society as a whole, of what we have done, what we have the capability of doing, and why it's wrong. So it puts an emphasis on a negative sentiment overall. And so what I want to contrast with that type of law is a law that engages with people when they're doing the right thing, when they are good, because so much of us as a person is overwhelmingly good and more good than that one incident that engages the law process in which you are then engaged in a punishment scenario.
And how did you discover this or come about it thoughtfully? You had an incident where you found some money in the gutter?
Yes. It's quite a long story, but I will truncate it as much as possible. But I was an undergraduate student at UC Berkeley, and I was on my way to class when I discovered about $80 in cash on the gutter. And instead of just keeping it, which at the time I certainly could have used the funds, I started giving out the money to strangers. And they were elated, they were confused, but I could tell it changed them. And that goodness, that one act, I felt like meant quite a bit, and I wanted to do more of it. So I started at the time a 501c3 nonprofit where I sold art, and I took the proceeds, and I used the proceeds to give money, which I called the Sidewalk Fund. And I left money on the sidewalk for people. And I called it Be Aesthetic Ethics. It was an idea that when you engage with the world aesthetically, that it ultimately affects you in an ethical way. That looking at a piece of art is an open-minded experience. And when you appreciate that art, you don't judge it for its faults immediately or its merits, but you take it in and you see the beauty and meaning in it. And with that thought of how can I merge aesthetics and ethics and what can I do with that, I entered a program, a master's program at Claremont Graduate University, and I studied under Professor Charles Young in his virtue ethics course, and of course I also studied under Professor Masahiro Yamada, and they were just incredibly wise, and I couldn't be more grateful for their support and the education that they gave to me. While in Professor Charles Young's course in virtue ethics, I started to think about what is right action. And what I found is that a lot of wrong action actually came from virtue and conflict. That is, should you never steal, or should you never fail to feed your family? Should you never lie, or should you always protect the emotions of another person? And in that moment, you have to make a decision. But inevitably, in deciding between those virtues, you're going to do the wrong thing. And that's when I thought, how is it just to punish someone for basically being split between virtue, between good things, and they chose one over the other, yet they're now in this negative situation. Around the same time that I entered into my master's program, I also was seeing on the news the tragedies of Eric Garner and Michael Brown's deaths, and the general animosity, the building animosity that was existing between police and citizens. And I wanted to take my philosophy and apply it practically. How could I, what I'm studying in this, very intellectual and removed capacity, what could I do with that and make a positive change, make a difference? And so I came up with the idea of merit ticketing, where police would be able to give tickets of nominal monetary value, that would be the minimum wage in the state of issue, to people in the community they saw doing good. Because police, it's such a difficult job that they have to only engage in negative situations all day. And that causes they're desensitized, they have to compartmentalize their own feelings in order to engage in these difficult situations. And in order to engage in those difficult situations all the time and enforcing this bounded law, they are creating a animosity between the citizens and the police, because the citizens only see police as someone who's going to bring a negative situation their way. Whenever a police officer comes close to a citizen, they immediately freeze and think, what have I done? Is something going to happen? What is he, she, they going to say? And then their reaction and their fear and their disapproval of the police in general creates a fear themselves. And then they are more prone to perhaps overreact. And perhaps the citizens more prone to overreact, anticipating some kind of negative situation. And so this builds and has now created a situation in which we find ourselves now. And so I was hoping with merit ticketing that police would be able to engage with the citizens in a new and unique way that was positive, and create a bridge between them and the citizens. But the drawback there was the funds. And people worried that the merit ticket itself, that money, was somehow going to be a corrupting factor. And
Corrupting factor for the police?
yes, or that perhaps it was like a bribe to the people to do the right thing. And there's all sorts of concerns about giving money as an acknowledgement of someone doing good. And so it took some time for me to think on that. And then I finally came to me that it's the symbol of giving and acknowledging that matters most. It's not about the money. And so I have created a pin, which I'm wearing here, that police hopefully would be able to give to citizens when they see them doing something good, that would build the same bridge as this merit ticketing, but without the money. And it comes full circle as it was never about the money to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
The whole process of giving the money was the act of giving itself, and so I realized that I'm in a better position, but it took quite some time to come up with this
Yeah.
initiatives.
Yeah, I think that's great. So what is your ultimate goal?
Peace. I wish for more prosperous, peaceful society where we don't just acknowledge people when they're bad, but we acknowledge them when they're good as well, because that's the fullest expression of justice.
Community building. Let us know what kind of community you would like to have. Go to our website or any of our social platforms and let us know your thoughts. Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu says, community and community building are central to conversations about identity and equity. For some, community means a group of people sharing common social characteristics, physical space, ideas, beliefs, or activities. For others, a community cannot exist unless the people coming together care about and feel connected to each other. This nuance reminds us that we can have things in common and be in the same space, but still feel isolated from and even afraid of each other. By considering each other's lives and experiences and perspectives, we allow a community to be not only about what we have in common, but what makes us different. I want to thank the resource team for all of their hard work in its creation, and to our viewers, until next time, stay strong.